Hello and welcome to the Movie Shack's rundown of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the confusing world of Marvel character movie rights. One of my subscribers suggested I make a video explaining all this, and I know there are a lot of moviegoers who may have a general idea but don't know the details. So my hope is that this video will clarify it, and by the end you should have a darn good idea of how it all fits together. Now let's get into it. The first movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the MCU as it's also known as, is the 2008 movie Iron Man. But in order to fully understand how everything connects, you have to go back to the 90s. It was a time where the comics industry was really struggling financially. As a matter of fact, it was so bad that Marvel actually filed for bankruptcy back in 96. There are many reasons why, and it's a whole other video just explaining that. But suffice it to say, Marvel needed money and started licensing off their characters to movie studios in order to get it. So soon after, Marvel licensed off Blade to New Line Cinema, who kicked off the modern era of Marvel movies making free Blade movies. Starting in 98 with Blade, followed by Blade 2 in 2002, and lastly Blade Trinity in 2004. Using Blade as an example, I will now try explaining something integral about how these character rights work. Marvel now has the rights back to Blade because in most of the licensing deals Marvel made, they have a clause stating that if the company with the license isn't in production of a movie within the franchise within a set amount of time, say 5 years, since the last movie, then the rights automatically reverts back to Marvel. And since New Line Cinema hasn't started production on a new Blade movie since Blade Trinity from 2004, Marvel now has the rights back. Now that we have an understanding about the character rights, let's look into what Marvel licensed off next. Fox and Marvel made a licensing deal giving Fox the movie rights to most notably the X-Men and their ancillary characters, meaning basically all mutants. There is, however, some overlap given that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are integral to both the X-Men and the Avengers. So Fox and Marvel share the rights to those two characters, with the only caveat being that only Fox are allowed to refer to them as mutants and divulge their parental ancestry, i.e. Magneto, as they own the rights to that. This is the reason you see Quicksilver in both the MCU and the Fox X-Men movies, and potentially could see Scarlet Witch pop up in an X-Men movie even though she has already appeared in the MCU. Fox and Marvel also share some rights to the shape-shifting alien race known as the Skrull, with Fox seeming to have a bigger piece of that shared pie as well. Fox also made a deal for Daredevil and by extension Elektra and the Fantastic Four, which include such notable characters as the Silver Surfer, Galactus and Doctor Doom. What Fox has done with their rights movie-wise is the following. Starting off with their mostly in continuity X-Men franchise back in 2000 with the first X-Men, followed by its direct sequel X2 and X-Men The Last Stand, followed by the poorly received prequel X-Men Origins Wolverine, which made Fox reimagine their X-Men franchise with the prequel X-Men First Class. Then they released the second Wolverine movie titled The Wolverine, which was a direct sequel to X-Men Last Stand. Then they did X-Men Days of Future Past, and that has time traveling in it, making it a sequel to both First Class and Last Stand. Then they put out X-Men Apocalypse, which is a sequel to the parts of Days of Future Past taking place in the past. Fox also released the very successful Deadpool, and it features two X-Men, and Ryan Reynolds plays Deadpool in both this and the first Wolverine movie, so they are somewhat connected, but whether or not it's in continuity with the rest of the X-Men movies is somewhat hazy. Fox also released a Daredevil movie starring Ben Affleck back in 2003 and a prequel spin-off Elektra movie in 2005, but the rights to those characters have since gone back to Marvel. Lastly, Fox used their rights to the Fantastic Four to make a 2005 Fantastic Four movie with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, who incidentally now plays Captain America in the MCU. It also got a sequel in 2007 titled Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, but neither were well received and Fox tried rebooting it with the 2015 Fantastic, which utterly bombed. Whether or not Fox will give the Fantastic Four another shot after 3 failed attempts or let the rights revert back to Marvel is unknown, but it seems more likely than not. Or maybe they will try to use them to make some kind of deal with Marvel. What the future holds for Fox's Marvel is uncertain, except we know that the third and final Wolverine movie is being released in March of 2007 with the title Logan. What also seems fairly certain is a sequel to Deadpool, as it was highly successful, both critically and financially. And due to the fact that it is just about to start shooting very soon, it seems like a sure thing. Other projects Fox are working on are of course a new X-Men movie, but also New Mutants, X-Force, and a solo Gambit movie with Channing Tatum attached as the lead. So Fox aren't showing any signs of slowing down, and it's highly unlikely that Marvel will be getting the rights back to the X-Men anytime soon. The next big studio with rights to Marvel characters is Sony. They acquired the rights to Spider-Man and Ghost Rider with Spider-Man and a whole host of other Spider-Man related characters like Venom, Carnage, and the rest of Spider-Man's rogues gallery. Sony released Ghost Rider in 2007 and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance in 2011, but they both flopped critically and financially, and the rights have since reverted back to Marvel. But Sony have fared a great deal better with the Spider-Man property. Starting out in 2002 with the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, followed by Spider-Man 2 and 3 in 2004 and 2007. Spider-Man 3 wasn't very well received, and Sony decided to reboot their Spider-Man franchise with the 2012 Andrew Garfield-led The Amazing Spider-Man, and its 2014 follow-up, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Although they both crushed at the box office, they weren't very well received critically, especially the second one, so Sony made a deal with Marvel to yet again reboot their Spider-Man, but this time as a part of the MCU. As we saw with Tom Holland portraying the newest iteration of Spider-Man in the MCU in the third Captain America movie, Civil War. The details in the deal between Sony and Marvel are as of yet unknown, but the first standalone Spider-Man movie, which is part of the MCU, is coming out in July of 2017, with Marvel co-producing and Sony handling the distribution. And it has been titled Spider-Man Homecoming. What the future holds for Sony's Marvel is very much up in the air right now, because of this deal they made with Marvel. But pre-deal, they had movies planned for Venom, The Sinister Six, and Black Cat, amongst others. But whether or not these are still happening has yet to be fully confirmed or denied. Other studios who hold or have held rights to notable Marvel characters are Universal and Lionsgate. Universal had the rights to the Hulk, and they did a 2003 Ang Lee directed movie simply titled Hulk, starring Eric Bana and Jennifer Connelly, which continuity-wise has nothing to do with the 2008 The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton as the Hulk. That movie is actually part of the MCU, even though Mark Ruffalo now plays the Hulk. Universal also acquired the rights to Namor the Submariner, but never made a movie about him. The rights to both have since reverted back to Marvel, although it seems they still hold the distribution rights, which is conceivably why we aren't seeing any standalone Hulk movies in the MCU at the moment, with the Hulk only starring in the Avengers movies and the third Thor movie. So besides some distribution rights, it seems like Universal is out of the Marvel superhero game. Lionsgate acquired the rights to Punisher, and in 2004 they released their first attempt simply titled The Punisher, starring Thomas Jane, but it failed to make an impact at the box office and was frankly a horrible mess of a movie. They then rebooted it with the 2008 movie Punisher Warzone, which, although a better movie, tanked at the box office, only managing to take in a measly $10 million worldwide. It looks like Lionsgate had enough, and the rights to Punisher have since reverted back to Marvel. And now onto the MCU, including how it was formed, what is canon, and who owns what. After Marvel had licensed off many of their characters and saw how profitable the movies could be, and due to the fact that they were only seeing a fraction of that money through the licensing, they decided to get into the movie-making business themselves. So by 2004, they were able to secure enough finances to start making their own movies. They carefully laid out plans to make their cinematic universe on a scale unheard of back then. Kinda hard to imagine with the way things are now, with every movie studio trying to make their own cinematic universe. But back then, it wasn't really a thing. They started off the MCU with a bang, with the excellent Jon Favreau directed Iron Man, starring Robert Downey Jr. as the titular character back in 2008. They followed this up with The Incredible Hulk later that same year. Marvel Studios were then in 2009 bought by Disney, who in turn pretty much let them run it themselves as an autonomous division. Pretty crazy to think that Disney within the last decade or so bought Pixar and Lucasfilms, who hold the rights to most notably Star Wars. So Marvel Studios, Pixar, Lucasfilms, and Disney's own stuff, both animated and live action, are all within the same umbrella. Well, enough about Disney, let's get back to the MCU. The first movie to be released post-Disney was Iron Man 2 back in 2010, followed by Thor the year after, and later that year Captain America the First Avenger was released in theaters. And ending what is referred to as Phase 1 of the MCU is the 2012 Joss Whedon directed The Avengers. Kicking off Phase 2 was the Shane Black directed Iron Man 3, followed by Thor The Dark World later that same year. Then in 2014 we got Captain America The Winter Soldier, followed by Guardians of the Galaxy. Indeed a very good year for the MCU. In 2015 we got Avengers Age of Ultron, followed by the last film in Phase 2, Ant-Man, with Paul Rudd as the Scott Lang version of Ant-Man and Michael Douglas as Hank Pym. Then in 2016, starting off Phase 3, we got the third Captain America movie titled Captain America Civil War, followed by Doctor Strange starring Benedict Cumberbatch as the titular character. And here in 2017 we are getting Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the Sony-made but still included in the MCU Spider-Man Homecoming, and lastly Thor Ragnarok. Confirmed future movies in chronological order are Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and an untitled Avengers sequel. So there you have it. That's the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Or kinda. There is some TV stuff, but canon-wise it's kinda funky as the TV stuff references the movies, but the movies does not acknowledge the TV stuff at all. But to briefly mention it, there is a still running ABC-made show named Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and there was also an Agent Carter show for 2 seasons. And then there are the Netflix shows, which is doing its own similar team-up stuff, but instead of the Avengers, they are doing the Defenders, which is a series for each member and a team-up miniseries. What started the Netflix verse is the exceptional Daredevil, which has had 2 fantastic seasons so far. Then there has also been 1 season of both Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, with Iron Fist and the Punisher shows on the way, and then you have the full roster for the Defenders. And that pretty much covers it all, but here at the end of the video I will show you the chart with the characters again, with a bunch of the MCU characters now included. I hope you found this video both informative and enjoyable. Of course there are a lot more details, and maybe there are some things that I'm missing. Whatever it may be, please comment below if you have anything to add or just want to say hi. Please consider subscribing, hitting the like button and all that jazz, as this is a fairly new channel and I'm trying to grow it, and anything you can do to help with that will be greatly appreciated and just plain awesome. Maybe take a look at some of my other content and see if there's anything you could find interesting. Thank you and bye bye.